welcome to Northern Lights. I'm Dwayne.
I'm Mark, and this time we're going to be talking about what we would like to see in the UFC in 2022. It's not necessarily a predictions video as such, it's just more what fighters we'd like to see more of, what fights we would like to see, and just in general what we'd expect next year after such a great year that we've just done a recap of.
So should we start right at the top, start with the big boys?
Yeah, the heavyweights, yep.
Yeah.
So is there any fights at all that would interest you in next year, whether it be early next year or just in general? It doesn't have to be for the championship, just fights in general.
Well, I think it all depends what happens tonight, because this is recorded before Derek Lewis fights. What's his name? Chris Daku. Chris Dawkins, that's it. Chris Daku, whoever that is. And then
Count
Daku. And then we've got Gan versus Ngannou, but it depends who wins that. But I'd love to see Lewis versus Ngannou too, because I think the first match we were so excited for it. It was such a build-up, and yet they both seemed so terrified of each other's power. Like they both knew either of us could knock each other out at any point. So let's just
that's widely regarded as one of the most boring fights that's ever happened.
It has to be, doesn't it? And I'd love to see them really go at it, like really, really go at it, because I think it's got some real potential, that fight. Because I think, we all think, Ngannou's this sort of trained, super elite fighter all of a sudden. But, maybe he's not, maybe he is. But I'd like to see him fight Lewis. I want to see what happens between those two.
It is funny that, isn't it? I mean, I think we was talking a while ago when in the second Stipe fight, Ngannou stuffed one takedown defense, he sprawled, and everyone's like, oh, he's got it all. He's got 100% it all. We don't know yet. I mean, I'm not shitting on him or anything because, if Ngannou looked at me right, I'd be knocked out. But you know what I mean? As in
100%.
With the heavyweights, it's different to when you get, say, maybe a lightweight that's a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
Because these heavyweights, no matter who you are, someone unranked, if they hit them right, and a top contender sort of thing, they could be going out. So I'm 100% with you on that. I think Francis and Lewis too would really deliver because they both want to prove. Even Lewis said when he won that fight by decision, I think even he said he's like, this fight has set me back like 2 or 3, because of what we didn't deliver and things, but because of who they both are now, they're both more established as must watch. I think that it could really deliver. But going down the rankings, a fight that I'd love and hate to see, if this makes sense, because I'm a big fan of both. I'd like to see Tom Aspinall versus Tai Tuivasa.
That's a difficult one. Like, I would love to see it, like you said, but I would hate to see it because I wouldn't want either of them to lose. Ideal, they'd put on a banger and it ends in a draw. That's the ideal.
Can't have everything, I guess, can
we? Or a double knockout.
Just because you don't want to see any of them lose, but you want to see both of them win. Imagine if Ty just knocks Aspinall out clean and then there's a draw and you're sat like, yep, 100% agree with that. I thought it was fair judgment by them judges. They get it right sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. But it is good because I think those two really are sort of the new faces of the division, like really coming up. Like, because Ty, he surprised me in his last fight at 269. He looked really technical. Well, as technical as sort of a fight like that can be, but with his switching stances and he really knew his positioning was really good. So it is interesting. But Aspinall, I think Aspinall's just such a well-rounded fighter. I think he's sort of that modern UFC fighter. He seems too skilled almost for the heavyweights. In some sense.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit early to say that.
Yeah.
Because of where he's ranked, but he's looked great in his last fight. He seems to have had it all. He submitted Arlovsky.
Yeah.
He knocked out is it Sergey, and I can't pronounce his last name. In his last fight, I'd like to see that. Or to be honest, either of them two fighting is a must watch for me. But it just depends if they fight each other. That's almost at the point where you're like, oh shit, I just don't want to see either of them lose.
No, definitely not. And I think I'd like. What about Stipe coming back? Because I
was just about to ask you about him. I'm unsure where. I think, like you said, it depends what happens tonight, because even Derek Lewis said he'd like to fight Stipe, but it just depends, where this lands him, because Stipe, is he still? Yeah, he'll be still ranked #1, will he?
Well, he's got to be, hasn't he? He was
Yeah.
the champ and lost once. Well, not lost once in his career, obviously, but he
Yeah, I
lost
know
the
what you mean.
belt. For
Yeah.
me,
So,
if you lose the belt, you're the #1 contender until someone proves you otherwise.
well, in this video, I don't really want to get to the point of predicting what the outcome of fights will be too much. I just want to talk about what we'd like to see. But in the sense of, I actually think that Gane beats Ngannou, and I'd like to see Stipe fight Gane, because Cyril Gane is so well rounded. He's got submissions. He's got like a KO power, all that kind of stuff. I think him and Stipe would be a really great fight. And I'd like to see that one.
And I think, what about John Jones coming up to the heavyweight division? He's been teasing it for a while. He's been getting fat. He don't really look muscly. He's just getting fatter all of a sudden. But have you seen his gut? I mean, obviously it's not compared to mine. I'm a champion. I'm a champion there. But like, he doesn't. For me, he doesn't look like he's getting more muscular. He just seems to be stacking a lot of weight. But maybe he's bulking. I don't know. But I think he might struggle if he comes up. Maybe his cardio is not going to be the same. He's not fought for a while. It's difficult, isn't it? But putting a lot of weight on, a lot more muscle, and
I can't really pass judgment on Jones, because when he was in the light heavyweight, it was active when he wasn't getting arrested and stuff. But
yeah.
it was active. But like, it's been almost 2 years. I've honestly stopped putting any thought into it. I won't get excited about a John Jones fight until it's actually announced, because there's no point. It's just like wasted, because everyone talks in the heavyweight, they regard John Jones. Yeah, but what about Jones? And you're like, well, it needs to actually come and fight first before you start involving him in the conversation. That's just where I sit.
And I wonder why he's waited so long to go to heavyweight.
Is it not a pay dispute or something like that? I'm not 100% sure, but I mean,
I wonder how much juice he's taking to get to heavyweight. You must be on the sauce. Literally, he must be having so much to get up to heavyweight. He's got to be.
Well, speaking of Jones, that brings us to downweight, to the light heavyweight division. Do you not feel this is not talking about this? No disrespect to anyone in the light heavyweight, but when a champion like Jones was so dominant for so long, you almost feel as if, and then it all of a sudden leaves. You've got these killers like Jan and all that kind of, and the champion Glover, but it's not as exciting.
No, definitely not, because it's weird.
There's no definitive.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because it's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because a dominant champion, that can become boring, but now you've got this division of light heavyweight fighters, should I say, who don't really have the big name behind them yet. It's a stacked, yet there's not a lot of big names in it. It sort of feels like they're all now under Jones's shadow. And where's that division going to go? You've got Glover now. Really glad he's champ. Really excited for him. But does he fight Jan next? Does he fight that? Is it Yuri? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think it'll be Yuri, because Jan's got a fight against that Alexander Rakic.
Oh, okay.
He's got a fight announced. It's a fight night card. But yeah, Yuri, is it Prohaska? I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
I think that could be a great fight. It might just be me. I almost feel like an inkling I've got to root for Glover in that, because the old man's strength and how great it was at 267 when he did it.
Yeah.
It was just a great feel good moment. So maybe I'm just clutching onto that. And usually my heroes, they get knocked out in devastating fashion. So because I think life just likes to crush my childhood dreams and things. So that seems to be what happens.
But no wonder you're so happy all the time, Mark.
Oh, I could depress newlyweds, mate. But I think there's a couple of people, not necessarily, not straight away in the title picture, but who I'm excited to see. Anthony Smith, I really like it. I've liked him since before the Jones fight. But even, do you remember in the Jones fight where John had kneed him when I think he had like 3 points to the floor or something like that, to the canvas, and the referee was asking him, and you know, if he was okay, and he said, I'm fine to continue. And afterwards, he said, I wanted to win the title, not steal it, like an Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people respected him for, and a lot of people still don't talk about that. I'm not saying that we should be talking about it in every single fight that he does,
Oh,
but it's just, you've got to really tip your hat, because Anthony Smith can take a beating. He will never, ever give up. You watch him in the Glover fight, his teeth were falling out.
Yeah, I was worried about him in that fight. I thought, is this sort of done for him? But I'm excited to see what he can do, because he's a fantastic fighter. He's on what, 3-fight winning streak now? Is it more than that? I don't know, but he's won his last 3.
But yeah.
So I think it's on the cards for him to come up. Really.
Well, yeah, there's a good few fights that I wanted to see him and Alexander Rakic at it. Him and Blachowicz would be good.
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
There's a few options for him, but someone else that I'm excited about in the light heavyweight division is Paul Craig. And it's not just because half my family's Scottish. I just like the guy himself. I think he's a great fighter. I think the first time I started to notice him is when he'd fought Shogun. Remember, Shogun Hua? He had a few fights with him. And then he obviously beat Jamal Hill earlier this year with the disgusting arm dislocation. But I'd wish, I know there might be suspensions or injuries and all that kind of thing, but I almost wish this, because I don't think Paul's that young. He's maybe like 35, maybe.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, but you think, speed it up. This is just as a greedy fan, an impatient fan.
But I don't think it's just a sense of greed as well. I think it's the lightweight division needs a little bit of extra something. It needs that
Light heavyweight.
Light heavyweight, yeah, not lightweight. I mean, the lightweight division definitely doesn't need any more. The lightweight does. And I think it's quite interesting now that Dana said that Paulo Costa is going to fight at light heavyweight now. But I don't think Paulo Costa wants to. I think he's too small. I don't think he's big enough. Like height-wise, anyway, because he's.
Oh, right. I was going to say, I thought you meant size. I was going to say, it's like the fucking Terminator.
Yeah. So that'd be.
But
who would you put?
The light heavyweight. I mean, I think we could say this about any division, but it just depends on what happens in, the next title defense and that kind of stuff, where people are placed. But bringing us back down to middleweight, do you not feel in the sense of, like, look, I'm an Israel Adesanya fan, but he's just looping everyone now. He's going around for the second fights of people. He's got a Rob Whittaker fight announced in February, and depending on how Jared Cannonier and Derek Brunson goes, if Brunson wins, maybe he'd be next in line, which would be the second fight with them. Just feel like it's going around. He fought Vettori twice.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like we said literally just before, like it's a double-edged sword. You've got this division that's held up by a very, very dominant champion. The only fight where I thought Izzy was going to lose, or not lose, but looked those struggling, was against Gastelum, because that was a fight and a half. They were, that could have almost gone either way.
People forget how close that was, because they just before the Yan fight, when Izzy was undefeated, they just took it as, he was undefeated. I mean, it's a shame for Gastelum, because I'm always rooting for him, because I really like him. I wish he could go on a winning streak again. I know he wishes that as well. It's just a lot easier said than done. But you forget how you watch that fight back. That was such a good fight, such a good card as well. But that's a separate story. But because he was bringing it to Israel as well, and then obviously after that he went and got Rob Whittaker, and that was quite convincing. Rob's first fight in quite a while after an injury, but since that Whittaker fight, Rob has fought. He's fought Darren Till, he's fought Jared Cannonier and Gastelum.
Yeah,
so he's had quite a bit going on as well.
The best thing for the middleweight division is for Izzy to lose. In all honesty, I don't think he will though. But I think that'll really just it'll just really give all these fighters a chance, give them something to do. Because it's
bring some sort of hype back.
Yeah, 100%. Because you just sort of feel like, Izzy's going to batter him. Like who can he fight next to? He's not fought.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it depends. I really like. It's not going to happen with Israel. It's not linked to that. But I really like Vettori. Him and Rob Whittaker would be good. I think that'd be.
That'd be a really good fight. Because Vettori seems almost unstoppable, like in the sense of he just can't be knocked down. It seems like,
Well, the amount of head kicks he was eating from Costa, but Izzy is his kryptonite. It just seems. I mean, yeah, I agree with what you mean. It's just when it's held up by such a dominant champion, it's hard to be as excited for every single fight that happens, because obviously whether someone's ranked number 15 or ranked number 5, you compare them to the champion, don't you? And you see him against Israel and you say, no, I don't think they've got anything for him. Yeah. But coming down again, we're getting into the lighter weights now, is the welterweight division, which, I mean,
again, another very, very dominant champion, right? Looping, lapping everyone. Who can beat Usman? Who can beat him in that division? You know,
I want him to go up to middleweight. I think I'd love to see him move up a weight. I don't know if it'll happen next year, because I mean, look, I've heard him say in interviews where he says, "Oh, because of I wouldn't go for that division whilst Izzy's there, because I'd rather us have belts in 2 different divisions rather than just one of us want 2 belts in, 2 divisions." But then I've seen him say, if he was to offer me a lot of money, I'd go up to fight Izzy. So I mean, where does it stand? I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know what Usman like. He's, he just says whatever, doesn't he? You know, he's a
I think it's wherever the wind blows, they'll change his mind.
But I would love to see him go up a division, but again, who can beat him? You know, I thought maybe Colby. I think Colby was the only person who could beat him, and he just he couldn't get it done. But there's a lot of even though there's a top champion in there who's very dominant, it's still an exciting division with a lot of good fights you can put on. Like, you can put Masvidal versus Colby. That is a fight I really
got to happen, really, doesn't it?
Still has to happen. But not about putting them 2 on Tough Art as the 2 coaches.
Yeah, I always think with that though, because Colby's going to have to stay in character whenever the cameras are rolling, though.
Yeah, that would be so awkward. I don't think you could do it. Yeah, you'd be right. It'd be really weird. You'd have to be in character all the time.
Yeah, I mean, but then for Usman, there's maybe Leon Edwards, but I don't think he'd offer Usman anything that he hasn't seen before, to be honest.
They've fought before, haven't they?
No.
Usman's beat Edwards before, hasn't he?
No, I don't think so.
Are you sure? I thought they had. Or maybe I'm wrong. But there is more, what about, Khamzat Chimaev? Where would he,
Well, sort of where does he fit into all this? Because I know you don't like the hype train, but I think you could throw him in there. Now he beat was it the 11th ranked with ease.
Yeah,
I think you could throw him in with top contenders.
Yeah. So Usman did fight Edwards in 2015 and beat him.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah, 2015. I thought they'd fought. I don't think I saw the match, to be honest, the fight. I hadn't seen it, but I knew they'd fought before.
Regardless of that, though, that's still looping. That's still going around.
100%. It's another lap, isn't it? It's someone else. He's beaten before. It's such a difficult, wasn't it? But I am interested to see how Khamzat will do in sort of these higher ranked fights now, because is it just a hype train? Is it, what's he really like, because he's obviously a very good fighter. Maybe he's good, but he might fight, Chiesa or Belal. I think they might be quite good for him to fight,
Yeah, I mean that'll bring him straight up there into talks of fighting with top 5 and stuff. But you look at him, he's massive as well for the division and stuff. So strong. But another couple of people, whether it's welterweight or middleweight for Nick Diaz or the Diaz brothers in general. Yeah. But to be quite honest with you, Dwayne, I don't get excited about a Diaz fight until it's announced. I don't really think about it in everyday conversation because he isn't that active.
No, neither. Well, definitely not Nick.
Well, no, he's just come back. But that, to me, that wasn't Nick Diaz. That was just someone who's been out of the game for a long time. But
I think I won't be surprised if we don't get Nate versus Usman next year. Not that Nate deserves it or he should be fighting for the belt, but I think he's a big fight and Usman wants to make as much money as possible. He seems to want to fight Nate. Nate wants them to fight. And I think we'd all like to see it happen, even if it's, even if Nate doesn't deserve it, I'd still watch the fight. So I think I'll be surprised if it won't happen. I think it might happen because it's his last fight on his contract as well.
I mean,
be interesting.
It depends.
And then and then Nate will knock out Usman, and then Conor will come up and he'll become the triple champ. Yeah, that's my dream for 2022.
Don't be a knob, Dwayne. So bringing us back down into that lightweight, which I actually think is the most stacked division that the UFC's got.
100%. Like lightweight division is crazy.
It's I think because honestly, we've got to talk about what's next for Justin Gaethje as well. He's got to be Oliveira.
Has to be. He's next in line. Dana said it as well. Everyone said it. It is Gaethje versus Oliveira. But what do you think happens in that fight? You know,
like I said, I don't really want to get down to the point of trying to predict the outcomes of fights, but like we've spoke about before, that Oliveira seems to get clipped. You know, he got clipped by Chandler, he got clipped by Dustin. Gaethje hits hard, so it's whether or not he can actually survive these. But we'll see.
Yeah,
I just want to see that fight happen because Justin deserves it, and I think it'll just be a cracking fight. But I just hope that it doesn't go down the route of just because Conor says jump, everyone says how high, and he just gets a title shot because it's a money fight. Because Charles would take that because it is a money fight, and
100%. He'd make millions fighting him. Imagine just percentage on the pay-per-view buys alone he'd make. And that is the one, because obviously, especially after we just spoke about the last division, I'm a massive Conor fan, of course I am. But he doesn't deserve a title fight. He should not be fighting Oliveira. Should not be happening. He needs to fight some lower ranked people, build himself up, and then maybe put him in a title picture. But he doesn't deserve it. It shouldn't happen.
I mean, there's what's next. I mean, a lot of people, and me included, I think, given Tony Ferguson, look, they've both been on a little bit of a losing. I don't want to say losing streak, but they've both been unfortunate in the last fights. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
In the last few fights, put them together because Tony, he's getting a little bit older now. Still a real threat. He's so dangerous and stuff. And put him in with Conor, and I think that'd be almost a dream fight.
Yeah, it'd be a competitive, exciting match. I'd love to see Ferguson versus Conor, because I think they're ideal for each other, because they're both very much stand-up fighters, for the most part, and I think it'd be a good striking bout. I don't know who'd win, and I don't even want to guess. I've not a clue.
What do you think about Islam Makhachev? Do you think he'll be a serious contender? I'd like to see him and Oliveira, but
I think the problem is I think Islam jumped a bit too high too quickly. Like he fought two people in the top 10, and now he's going to be the number one contender after Gaethje. For me, I don't think he
did it not do like a 9-fight win streak? That's what they were talking about. But
Edwards. Yeah, like Khabib against nobodies. Do you know what I mean? He fought nobodies, and now he's you can't a 9-fight win streak's great, but if you're beating up nobodies, who cares? The biggest fight he's had is Dan Hooker. And Dan Hooker, it's not the best stand-up, is it? Not stand-up, best ground game. But, we'll have to see how he does against Dariush. But I think the problem is, if Islam wins, I think he'll do a Khabib and retire, and then go to Eagle FC. And then,
Yeah. I mean, there's that. I mean, this is what I mean. It's a stacked division as well, because there's so many, and they're all going to align at one point, because there's also another fight as well. If Dustin Poirier decides to stick at lightweight, I'd love to see him and Michael Chandler. I'd love to see that.
That'd be an amazing fight, because they both love to stand and bang, don't they? They'd really go for it. They'd really swing at each other. Yeah. Really exciting.
Just an exciting division. I mean, we'll see what happens, because we've just had a lightweight championship match, so a championship fight. So we'll wait for a little while.
For at least 6 months, I don't think.
Featherweight, though, speaking of Dan Hooker, he said that he's coming down. He's making the weight.
Yeah, which I think's what we really need. I think the problem with the featherweight division is it's really a two-man division. There's Max and Volk. That is it. There is no, they're both battered Ortega. Holloway pieced up Rodriguez. And that's it. That's it for that division. So I think Hooker coming in will really spice things up a bit. I'd love to see Max versus Hooker. I mean, I can't even imagine how good that fight would be.
Yeah, that would be that was really good. Like just the length of him as well, but of Dan, I mean, sorry, he's like
Of Dan's what?
yeah. 6'1". That's 2 measurements. But like he said, it's like I think you've got Volk and Brian Ortega. You've got Max. But like you just said, they both beat Brian Ortega. You think who else is there? There's like there's Korean Zombie in there, that kind of stuff.
Korean Zombie got beat by Ortega. And then what is it? Yeah, I think Yeah's 3rd or 4th, is he? He got beat by Max. It's just it is a 2-man division, and I think Hooker coming down to that division is really exciting.
Yeah, that could be fun. We got the just because there was a mix up, like not a mix up, but like a double champ status and all that kind of thing, and they seem to like up and down weight classes. We'll talk about the women's division as a whole.
Yeah,
because
I think
obviously you've got Nunes as a double champ. You've got Jessica Andrade moving up and down weight divisions and that kind of thing. You've got how dominant Valentina is. So I thought just we could talk about them as a whole.
Yeah, 100%. I agree, because I think Nunes is in a division on her own, basically. Like, who's she fighting at featherweight? Who's she going to fight? Max Holloway next? Bloody hell, who's she? She's literally on her own in that division. There's no other women apart from Cyborg, and she's long gone now, isn't she? So who's she going to fight?
There's it seems to be the same the sense of because even if they're in strawweight, you almost get the sense that they're not a million miles away from any other weight.
No.
So it depends what they want to do. But I think in the women's, there's Valentina. I always look forward to seeing her fight. She's amazing. So sharp, so laser focused. But I'll tell you, a good drinking game is just to sit there and whenever Joe Rogan calls her an assassin, take a shot and you'll be fucking paralytic by the end of the first round.
Well, Valentina, I'd love to see her. Obviously, everyone wants to see her fight Nunes again. But maybe there's.
Yeah, Dana says we don't want to see it, and he says I don't think there's a need. Right. Where are you looking, Dana? Because everyone online says, "Oh, give him the third one." Aside from Juliana Pena beating Nunes, because obviously that shook up the division.
Yeah. So that's what makes it interesting. Is Pena going to fight Nunes again, or is Nunes going to want to take a little break, recover, sort of figure out where she is, do some training? But then if she takes that break, Valentina is going to fight Pena 100% and become double champ if Nunes doesn't take the fight. So that's super interesting.
There's a few things going on as well because what about Joanna Jędrzejczyk potentially coming back?
Well, she has to come back. She's got to come back. Maybe fight Rose again. Maybe fight
Jessica. She got kicked out of the rankings, didn't she? So maybe she'll have to claw away again.
I think she's such a name. I'll be surprised if they don't just whack her up because, as we said, the women's division is very light. It's got some fantastic fighters. Some of my favorite fights this year have been in the women's division. Zhang versus Rose too, and seeing Valentina fights are always amazing. But I think it's such a light division that her coming up will really sort of just give it that little extra boost it needs. But then who does she fight? Does she fight Zhang again? Do we take that one back? But the thing is, I think Zhang's become too good a fighter now. She's evolved too much. So I think she'll beat her again if they fight again. But then what happens with Zhang? What happens with Rose? Who does Rose fight now? She's beating everyone in her weight class.
That's the thing. If Zhang would have won the second fight, it would be a trilogy straight away.
Yeah,
but because 100%. Rose has just won 2 in a row, they can't make the trilogy straight away. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, I know Zhang was talking about going up a weight because she's already very heavy for the division, and the cut's quite difficult for her to make. So it might be quite interesting seeing her go up, fight a couple of. But I don't even know what the division it is.
Yeah, I get how you mean it anyway, but I think that all depends on. I hope Nunes gets a fire again, and she wants to come back sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
maybe this can start the fire. Valentina, it's always fun watching her. She's got it all. She's just so dominant. It's scary, to be honest.
Yeah.
Moving down in the male category to the bantamweights, though, which I think is actually an underrated division. I think it's it's quite, aside from the champion, you know, because you just feel like an injured champion or you know, an injured champion that got it off a fluke knee. It just doesn't sit right with me. I get the sense that, but nah, it just doesn't sit right with me. And surely he's got to fight Jan in this
Sterling and
next
Jan
year.
has to be the fight to make this year. Has to be. They can't not fight. He's got to be.
Yeah.
Sterling is a good fighter though. Like, people remember, like, he pieced up Corey Sandhagen, took him down and choked him. He is a good fighter. I think he just, and like, even against Jan, yeah, he was sort of all over the place, but like, Jan couldn't finish him, which I thought was weird. Like, he was throwing Sterling around and I thought, just finish him off. And he couldn't seem to do it. So I'm excited. Hopefully Sterling's really been training really hard and maybe it'll be a competitive match. But I doubt it. I think Jan's probably going to be too dominant. But
Well,
yeah,
there's a few things
so
that are kicking off in this division as well, because you look at Corey Sandhagen lost the decision to TJ Dillashaw and then he went for the interim title fight. So surely TJ is going to be up there somewhere.
Yeah,
he's got to make a comeback and do this because he's still got it. You know, it was out for 2 years, wasn't he? Was it not PEDs or something like that?
Yeah, it's PEDs. Yeah, juicy.
But yeah, he did. You know, he's got to make a comeback, and I think
maybe you get Corey too because it was such a close fight. Maybe they fight again.
Potentially, yeah, that'd sell because that was how good that was. I do really like Corey, to be honest. There's Dominic Cruz made a great comeback at 269
against Rob Font.
That was just a really great fight. Him and Aldo potentially, I think.
The trouble is, again, for me, that'd be like Ty versus Aspinall. I wouldn't want Cruz and Aldo to lose against each other, because they're both such legends of the sport. It would be an amazing fight, though. Really, to see them two go at it, it'd be so exciting. But I wouldn't want either of them to lose.
Yeah.
Because normally when we watch, I'm like, yeah, I want this person to win. Whereas a fight like that, I just think, oh, I'd be just terrified. I don't know.
I don't want to really go into it too much because it's only hearsay at the moment, but potential of Henry Cejudo, I'm not sure if it was bantamweight or if he said that he wanted to come back to featherweight and have a fight against Alex.
Well, Cejudo can fight at 3 weight divisions quite easily, couldn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not sure if he has his sights set on coming back. This is the thing about potential returns like that. I never really get too excited until the fight's announced, and then I'll think, oh yeah, that'd be quite good. But someone else as well, Sean O'Malley coming up. He's now got a ranking next to his name.
Is he 12? Is he now? Something
it's something like that. Yeah, I know he's not brought the top 10, but he's past 15. But I mean, he's quite active as well. Did he not have 3 fights this year?
Yeah, 3.
So I mean, 2022, if he has another 3 fights, if he wins, presuming that he wins, he'll be at least in the top 5, surely.
100%. He's got to be. But who does he fight? Does he fight? Surely he's got to fight Chito Vera again at some point.
It's got to be done, surely. I mean, the Garbrandt fight would be okay, but to be honest, I think after the last loss that Garbrandt just had, we'll talk about that in a second. But I think the hype for that has gone now. For me, anyway. I don't know about for everyone else, but because Garbrandt's been on a bit of a losing streak, it just seems a little bit, well, it's not needed now, is it? We was excited for it, but not anymore. Chito Vera, because I think even if Sean wins or if Vera wins, it's a definitive winner. You can't get the excuse of, well, he fucked his ankle. There's no excuse built in there for the fans. I mean, I'm not talking for Sean. I mean for fans, like the nut huggers, where straight away they just jump. Well, he was injured, so I think I'd like a definitive win.
Yeah, I would. I'd really like to see it, and if Sean can get a few fights, I mean, now we're going to be talking about 2023, but if he can get 3 wins this year, he could be fighting for a title in the year after.
You had it perfect, I think, in our 269 recap where you said the thing is with Sean O'Malley, we don't talk about this fight, we always talk about the next fight.
Yeah.
Because everyone looks through opponents. It's like Chimaev. I'm guilty of it because I was saying I think he's ready for, further down the division, but we'll just see with Sean. Depends who he fights next. But the last weight class, the flyweight division. Obviously, in January we've got Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo 3, which I think should be a really good fight. First one was so close. Second one, Moreno was really happy for him to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And decisive win, all class from Davison as well to lift him up and everything. And
he's such a nice guy as well, in Moreno. He's so sweet, and I think it's good to, and I'd really like for him to win again, but you just never know how it's going to go. But then, whoever wins that, who do they fight next? Maybe Kai Kara France. That'd be cool.
I honestly think it will be Kai Kara. Look, I was converted as a fan of Kai Kara after the Corey fight. I did like him, but I wasn't a fan, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
He just seems like it's a sport of where you're locked in a cage and you try and take each other's heads off. So I can't really dwell on he's a nice guy too much. You know what I mean? But he's a great fighter and he's 100%. He's so quick and everything. But he is a nice dude, and you almost just that humane and human element of it. When someone's that nice and that, you kind of do feel an attachment of you want them to do well.
Yeah,
so I think as a fighter in general, he is really up there, and I think he does deserve the title shot. It would be nice to see Cody. What do you think? There's anything going to be happening there in flyweight for him?
I don't know. I think the trouble is, I love Cody Garbrandt. I think he's a really good fighter, really exciting, and he's still very young, but he's had a bad few fights recently. And I think he thought beating Kai Kara France would be his sort of resurrection into it. He'd be back in the division fighting. But the trouble is, again, he's losing to all killers or really, really top guys. And that's what happens. Has he lost every fight since he beat Cruz? Lost every fight.
No, he beat. He got the last minute knockout against the Sunsao, didn't he?
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah,
the last second. But I mean, I was listening to a Chael Sonnen podcast, and he was talking about Cody Garbrandt, and he said the night he beat Cruz, you take what Chael says with a pinch of salt, but I think he was right on this one. He said that night where Cody Garbrandt fought Cruz, I don't think there was a bantamweight on the planet that could beat him. Yeah. It was so good, but you look at the TJ Dillashaw fights. He caught TJ and then he rushes in and he got clipped himself and all that. The Rob Font, that was just a better fighter, to be honest, just more volume, and he didn't really have a lot for him. Kai Kara knocking him out in the first round, I was surprised at. I don't know if it was the weight cut or anything, or if Kai was just too fast, too powerful. I think the power shocked him though.
Yeah,
because he got one of the most square punches that I've ever seen, because he was stepping into the first, not when he knocked him out, but just when he knocked him down the first time. Kai hit it, and Cody starts bouncing against the fence. When he's saying, "Come here, come for me again," and you're like, "You've just nearly had your lights out." I don't know if you've been involved.
And Kai just grabbed his head in place and banged him again. He literally held his head up and whacked him. Just crazy.
Really good fight, but to be honest, I think 2021, I think we were spoiled as fans.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous, and you don't compare years. I don't compare years for UFC, but there's that much going on, and it might just be because obviously the more you watch UFC cards in general, the more interested you get, and you might, even if you watch the early prelims, and then months later you might say, "Oh, I recognise them from before," that kind of stuff. So there's all these things that can fit into place, but I think there's going to be a few new champions. Maybe not in middle or welterweight, but a couple of other weight divisions. I think there's going to be a few switchovers and a few change-ups as well. And like we said, it's going to be a good year for up and comers like Khamzat and for Sean OMalley.